Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Ashley Hardy, and this is the fourth installment of your personal development and empowerment work with Tech AF Founder Academy. I'm really excited for today's class because this is one of the most life-changing practices that I have integrated into my life in the last year and a half or so. So I actually got it, well, a version of it, from this book, Stay Woke by Justin Michael Williams. He is a wonderful, as he calls himself, mostly gay Black man living in Hollywood. And he was a famous music artist and is now really well known for his work in spirituality, meditation, motivation. He is a delight, and this book, Stay Woke, is really wonderful as well. If you are new to meditation, or you feel like you don't want to, or you don't feel like you relate or resonate with a lot of the teachers who are available, he is all about bringing meditation, all of these exercises, really down to earth. So he offers his own spin on things, and I just wanted to share that book because I find him so adorable. And there are many, many practices in there if you want that type of support. So lots of meditations, lots of prompts, and a way of delivering the information that feels more like, I mean, it's called a meditation guide for the rest of us. So I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. And I wanted to just bring that up because this exercise is one that I've actually since seen pop up and talked about with other teachers. But I originally started doing it through his work. So I got really excited and just started jumping in. So let's just take a moment and calm down. And let's place our hands over our hearts and close our eyes and just get comfortable. And you're just going to breathe out all the breath you have in your body, even grabbing your core and drawing it inward and upward and squeezing out all of the breath, and then breathing in through your nose. Take a big sweeping breath through your entirety of your body. Puff up, 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 and then exhale through your mouth. Breathe in and in. Exhale through your mouth. And one more time, breathe in. At the top of your inhale, take in more breath, more than you thought you could hold. Bring in more, more, more. And then the biggest, loudest exhale you have. And then bringing a calmer breath in, just as deep. Let the shoulders soften down your back. Let your face relax. When you exhale, just feel the body release the breath, surrendering into the softness and suppleness of your body. And breathing in, receiving, welcoming all this fresh prana to fill you up. Expanding and exhaling, softening. Keep with that rhythmic breath. And you're just going to start to relax into the sensation of trust. Trusting yourself. Trusting your body to know exactly what it needs. When to let go, when to receive. Until it feels almost like your body is breathing you. And you can lean back. And you're going to repeat after me, or whatever volume feels right to you, but let's make it audible to some extent. A whisper, or louder, with some authority in your voice. Say, I trust myself. I trust myself. I trust myself. I trust you, body. I trust you. I trust you. And then just gently beginning to open your eyes. Good. You're just going to start tapping with the outer edges of both hands. Even though life is scary, I trust myself. Even though I have been through much, I trust myself. Even though I have made mistakes, I trust myself. And if one of those phrases or another one pops out into your mind, if something comes up, percolates to the surface, then you're going to use that phrase. And it could be deeply personal. It could be nonsensical to you. Even though blank, I trust myself. Even though I have made mistakes, I trust myself. Even though they said I can't, I trust myself. And then you're going to bring that tapping with your fingers to the top of your head, and you're going to keep repeating the phrase that most resonates with you. Even though it is scary, I trust myself. Even though I've made mistakes, I trust myself. Even though I've made mistakes, I trust myself. Even though it is scary, I trust myself. Good, and now you're going to bring that same tapping to right over your eyebrows on your forehead. Even though I've made mistakes, I trust myself. And if any emotions or sensations in the body come up, just take the seat of the gentle observer and deepen the breath. Let your exhales come through your mouth. Sensations okay here. Good, and you're going to bring the tapping to underneath your eyes as you continue repeating the phrase that is most resonant with you, and it might switch, but we are always going to come back to I trust myself. And it can be external events that happened that are coming up. Even though I filed bankruptcy, even though they told me I'm not worthy, even though this is hard, whatever it is, I trust myself. Then you're going to bring one of the hands to tap. It's a little weird to switch to right over your mouth, under your nose. Then just tap, 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 and keep repeating the phrase. And then switch to right under your lip, or you can do your jaw with both hands. Even though, and come up and down, even though this is scary, I trust myself. Even though I have made mistakes in the past, I trust myself. And again, sensation might come up. And that's totally okay. Sensation is not bad. We're training ourselves to hold more and more sensation. And we trust ourselves. Good. And you're going to bring the tapping to your collarbones or right below your collarbones. Even though I trust myself. Even though I trust myself. Even though I trust myself. And if you feel called to tap somewhere else, if you want to tap right over your heart, wherever, trust yourself to know, trust your innate wisdom. And just keep repeating the phrase. And it will likely change. The first part of it will likely change. Just keep coming back to I trust myself. And then we're going to start from the beginning one more time. Outer hand, tapping outer hand. And go up and down. Even though I trust myself. Even though I trust myself. Even though I trust myself. Even though the world can feel scary, I trust myself. Even though the world can feel scary. And then coming up to the top of the head. Even though I trust myself. And try, if you're being asked to let go into this, if you're being asked to cry, if you're being asked to release emotion, if the phrases don't seem to make sense to you, that's fine. We're not working with your conscious mind here. We're working with your subconscious. We're working with the parts of you that are holding limiting beliefs and stories from your past that you may not have even been aware were being created or happened. You might not have any like working memory of them, or maybe you do. This is just an emotional release technique so that we can release what we're holding somatically, what we're holding in our bodies that is no longer serving us. And limiting beliefs, past stories, fears, these things can really stick around in our body. Move to your forehead. And we're just inviting them to be released. And then down under the eyes. Even though I've made mistakes, I trust. Good. Under the nose. Good. Into the jaw. And when you're practicing this, I'm kind of intuitively moving based on the reactions of my own body right now. But when you're practicing this on your own, they do recommend about 8 taps or 7 taps in each spot, but I would just trust yourself. And if you do only 7 taps, coming down to your chest, then you can go through the parts really quickly. And you can also introduce a new phrase per round. So from hand all the way down to chest, maybe you use one phrase and then another phrase pops up and you're kind of deepening into one belief and really exploring it and allowing it to move through you. And let's just do one more round at that heightened pace and let a new phrase come in that ends with, I trust myself. Okay, here we go. Hands, head, forehead, under your eyes. Oh, did I skip that one? Above your lip, under your nose, jaw, or under your lip, wherever feels better. Good, and final on your chest, under your clavicle. Good. And now you're just gonna keep shaking. So shake out your hands, shake out your arms if you wanna stand up, and shake out your legs. Shaking, 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 shaking. Letting that energy move. You might wanna sweep your hands over your head, sweep your hands over your arms. Just really letting whatever's dog for everywhere. Letting whatever came up be swept away. Good. Good, 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 good. And when that's all done, let's just heat up our hands with loving energy, loving presence, all of the feelings of worthiness. Just put them wherever on your body you need to. So maybe your head, maybe your eyes, maybe your heart, maybe your womb. Good. Good, good, good. And take a sip of water. Excellent. So that was an emotional release technique for tapping. And you can utilize it whenever feels good for you. There's another practice that I'll teach you that my teacher does, where the tapping is a lot more organic and it's more about mapping emotions and feelings and beliefs and manifestations into the body. This is more about how do we release limiting thoughts? How do we release old stories? How do we get into deeper layers of consciousness? So sometimes we have a feeling of like, I can't do this, but there's a deeper root that might be, I am unworthy. And there might be a really good reason that you feel that way, that you embodied that feeling, but maybe it's not as conscious. I think that pretty much everyone in the world probably feels unworthy to some extent, and that we're all kind of working with that limiting belief, which is partially why I chose it. But other things will come up, definitely be activated through creating your own company and seeking funding and stretching into this new space that is less familiar to you. And that's expected. And it is a really wonderful opportunity to meet yourself exactly where you are and to continue stretching, 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 stretching. So add that to your toolbox. In our last session, you received the homework to look over the last year, 6 months, or season, and to write down any observations of people, places, behaviors, things, activities that elicited some sort of response in you. And that response could have been a positive one, like spending time in Costa Rica. Creates this deeper connection to nature, and it revives my creative spirit, and I just had a burst of inspiration afterwards. And actually that's where the whole idea of this company came from. Could be really big like that. And it could also be like when I get too focused on dating and get a little too willy-nilly with my yeses, then I feel drained and I have less to give to the things that really matter in my life. So what we're doing is we're really identifying these things in our lives, the who, what, wheres, both from the year in review, as well as your current observations day to day, so that we can tend to our environment. So an analogy that a lot of my teachers use is that we are tending to our own garden. Our life is our garden. Our world is our garden. And a lot of people want to jump ahead to, I'm going to plant this oak tree in my yard and it is going to grow really fast and it's going to produce shade and shelter for generations to come. And this is what I'm giving. It's part of my legacy. Or maybe you want to create something like a vegetable garden and it's going to feed everyone. And I'm going to share this abundance with all of the people in my life. And it's going to make me self-sufficient. And those are such wonderful aspirations. Absolutely. And however you see your legacy and your gift to the world and to yourself is so righteous and so wonderful. And we need to tend to the soil first. We need to ensure that what we are planting the seeds of our future in is as nutrient dense, as free of toxins, as rich in compost as possible. And this analogy is really popular because it's just so close to who we are as a species, right? Like we know what it means in terms of compost to take our waste and allow it to become something full of life and lessons and richness and nutrients. We know what it means to remove weeds and take from our beds that which no longer serves us or that which might even be parasitic. So what these exercises are about, this beginning of our personal development and empowerment work, is really ensuring that we are tending to our soil first and foremost and forever. Because whatever you want to grow, if you start watering and fertilizing with all of these other exercises, whatever you want to grow will likely grow, but it may be growing alongside some really detrimental and invasive species as well. So in literal terms, that means you may need to remove behaviors, activities, places, and people from your life to some degree in order to have the richest environment for your dreams to be produced. So this experiment, I am going to write it down because I love it so much. It's called the boundary experiment. And I don't even know if I don't know if he calls it that. I think I just call it that. And I call it an experiment because, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, I really want to keep thinking about everything in my life as an experiment, right? Like is that backwards? It's gonna be backwards to you. Hold on, maybe I can. Oh no, it's mirrored. There we go. Okay, so everything's an experiment, and this really falls in line with what we were talking about before when we were talking about the gentle observer as being this really neutral observer a scientist who is looking at your life and looking at everything you do and everyone you interact with as part of the greater landscape. And they don't really have an opinion about someone being bad or you needing to like repent for some behavior you have. It's really just, what are the different variables in my life and how much of each one and when can impact the outcomes that I want to have, right? So it's just an experiment, not a big deal. And I always laugh about this because this is like my go-to mantra when we start to get a little too serious about something that we're doing with Tech AF. You know, it's like either let's just be playful, let's just have fun, let's just get curious, or it's who cares? It's an experiment. We're going to find out how it works out. And this has been, as I said, the best tool in my arsenal, and it has really helped me to lean on the idea that this isn't about anything negative. This is just about how, like, for example, the reason I say anything negative is because you may have internal resistance already to the idea that like, oh, I really observed that when I hang out with my cousin Nancy and I share this with her, it really drains me. And now I feel like maybe she shouldn't be in my life at all. That's not what this is about. This is about determining how in increments you can have what you want in your life in a way that is healthy for you, in a way that tends to your soil, in a way that makes your environment as rich as possible for you to be able to build the vision that you have for your company and the world. Because likely it's not just about having a company, it's about having a positive impact on your users, on the people who benefit from your product, as well as on you and your life. And when you are filled up, when you are able to show up as this better version of you, this next version of you, then everyone benefits from that, right? Like everyone in your life is glowing from your light. Okay, so I have to make a confession. I just ran this as I normally do and figured out a better way to do it. And so we are starting again, even though I didn't have to share that with you. I am, because it's just cracking me up and you can see my streakies. So we are ready to take your observations, and some of these observations, and this is why it's called the boundary experiment, are starting from a place of where you want to put better boundaries into your life, like in the example of your cousin Nancy, which is the first one we'll use. And then some of them are going to start with surprising positive reactions and responses you've had to things as well. So you are going to create 4 columns by drawing 3 lines down your journal paper right now. And in the first column, you're going to choose, I like to start with 3. So 3 is a really manageable number of variables that you can shift in your life and still be able to live your life. And I also like to choose when it fits your life, when it fits your observations, a who, a what. So a who, and then a behavior. And for this example, we'll do a belief. So for your who in your first column, your second column is going to be what you observed. So this is so you can like track the truth of what you observed. And for your cousin Nancy, you're going to write, I would write something like, I love hanging out with my cousin Nancy, and there are so many things we can talk about that light me up, that we share. But because she comes from a corporate background and because she has fears around risk, when I talk to her about my business, she can kind of breathe those fears and doubts into my own belief system around my business, and it causes some anxiety. So that's the observation. And be as detailed as you want to be, or just write bullets, but you really want to record what the details are here, like what are, or like the overarching themes here, like she's in corporate, because they might apply in other ways. Like you may notice, actually, whenever I talk to anyone who has low risk tolerance about my business, they tend to do this. And so it kind of just like helps with the experiment. So in the third column, you'll write the experiment. And in this example of Nancy, the experiment's going to be, I will talk to her about the things that we share and the things that she can positively inform in my life. So we love to go out to eat, and we love to talk about traveling, and she gives me really excellent advice about my relationship. And so I'm going to limit our conversation in that way. That's my boundary. And when she asks about my business, I'm just going to give her a well thought out response that I form ahead of time. And so that might look like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. I love how you always are so supportive. I'm really feeling like I want to hold it close to my heart at this point in time, but when I'm ready to share more, I will come to you and share. Is that okay with you? And so when we are proactive with our boundaries, then it helps us to prevent kind of acting out or not acting from a place of integrity. So if we are feeling guilty about wanting to put a boundary in place, or we feel guilty that we feel this way about Nancy, then it might come out like snarky or avoidant later on. So we're just being proactive and integrous, and we are learning how to lead through the energetics of our body. And then when you are choosing something that's detracting, that may, in your experiment, may be creating more space, like, okay, well, if I'm not talking to Nancy about my business, then that leaves me space to talk to somebody else about my business. And so you could add a plus in this column or a minus, and then the plus is going to be something that you observed over the last year or in your current life that has actually been really beneficial or inspiring or energizing. And in this case, let's use the example of whenever I talk to my friend Monique, because she's also an entrepreneur and because she's actually succeeded, I feel like we have this really dynamic conversation where we are offering one another insights and we're problem solving. And I leave there with fresh ideas for my business. And so with this extra space I've created, I'm going to actually outrightly ask Monique to be one of my biz besties or my mentor even, and see if she'll meet with me some predetermined time every month to chat about my business. And now you're using that energy that you freed up that was being wasted in one place to really benefit your business, to really benefit who you are, and to help you find the access points to this next version of you. So this is the moment where we can go back to that analogy before, where you are behaving in one way, and now like you're stepping into that next version of you. You're actually taking radical responsibility for your environment, for your actions, for the people that you interact with, and creating the space to be who you want to be. And it does require that kind of responsibility. It really, really does. And you can look at other places in your life to observe that truth as well. So a behavior. So I'm going to choose a behavior. So this is where I got thrown off last time, because I was realizing that as you looked over the last year, you may have been surprised by something that lit you up that maybe you didn't think lit you up. And the example that came to my mind was, a lot of us can relate to being raised with some sort of tradition in childhood that we like grew a resentment towards. And one that has been common in my experience, but may not be common for you, so don't take it as more than an example, is going to church. I'm 38, and we totally grew up in the time of like purgatory and guilt and shame in the Catholic Church. And so a lot of my peers who grew up in that same environment have a really negative connotation, and they believe that they're, at some point they believe they were atheist, or they believe that church is bad or whatever. But perhaps someone might observe that the times that they did take a Sunday or a Christmas Eve or whatever to go to church, and this can be applied to any religious or spiritual experience, they actually really did feel lit up. Something about the way that the leader was speaking to them, or the singing, or the being in community, or just being around people that they grew up with, or being in a high vibe environment, felt really good. And they were really surprised by this. So this is where I got thrown off. So you could choose the behavior of going to church, or maybe you don't consider yourself an outdoorsy person, but the few times that you've forced yourself to go on a hike because your friends were going, wait a minute, you actually really enjoyed it. That could be your behavior. And then what you observed was, I had this belief that I didn't like this. However, when I am in this particular situation, so maybe it's not hiking a 14,000 foot mountain, but maybe it's just like hiking along a river with a group of friends, or alone with your dog. I actually feel X, Y, or Z. I feel really connected to nature. I feel calm and peaceful. I feel like being in the natural elements can really soothe me and create space in my day to come back with more energy. I love putting my feet in the water. Or I observed that when I take my mom to church, I actually love being in community. Because when you start with these observations that get a little more detailed, you may find a better activity, person, place that suits you. So if you enjoy being in community, there might be a better alternative than church. If you enjoy being outside, there might be another activity outside you can do. So then you're going to enter the experiment. And these experiments can be daily changes. They can be, like in the case of social media control or eating healthier, or they can be monthly habits, quarterly habits, annual habits, even weekly habits. And then in this case, the plus, if you're adding a positive thing under your behavior, the plus can be another observation or some way to sweeten the deal. So if you feel like, oh man, I still have resistance to doing this, if I do this, I'm going to sweeten it an extra little bit by going out for my favorite ice cream after a hike. So you are kind of doubling up the goodness of the experiment. So let's move on to a belief, a limiting belief. So an example I love to use is I think a lot of us have limiting beliefs around relationships, money, self-worth. So if I were to use money, I have a belief that I am bad with money. This is an example. So I am bad with money. And the observation is, when I dig a little further in, I kind of don't actually know that much about money. It's not that I'm bad with money, it's that I actually didn't receive a very good education around money. And so the experiment is, what if I do educate myself more about money? And so right now I'm keeping a money diary because I want to find out, this is actually a financial feminist, Tori Dunlap exercise to figure out what your highest value spending goes to. So what are your top 3 values, and like, how do you want to spend your money? Because you're going to spend $1 somewhere. It might as well be in a place that is really meaningful for you. This is directly correlated to what we're doing here with the boundary experiment, except this is with your time. You're going to spend your 24 hours in some way. Every one of those hours should, or as many hours as possible, should go to your highest value activities. I think there's somebody else who does Afford Anything. I think she might talk about this too. But so my belief is I'm bad with money. My observation is that I actually need more education in money. It's not just a negative belief that an affirmation is going to change. The experiment is that I am going to read this book by Tori Dunlap, and I'm going to do all the exercises she tells me to do. And because that's kind of painful for me, I'm going to sweeten the deal by, I actually am doing my money diary in the morning with my coffee in the sunshine at my kitchen desk, because that is now creating a positive affiliation with my experience of holding myself accountable to money. So this is kind of looking at 3 different ways that you can approach this. So in review, you can do the first one where you have a detracting belief, behavior, person. You're always writing down the observation. What are you really noticing here, with some high level details so that you can apply it to other parts of your life. The experiment, how are you going to change this relationship that you have with this who, what, or belief? And how are you going to sweeten the deal? You are now adding more discipline to your life. How are you going to sweeten the deal? It could be by spending more time with somebody else, by making that activity more pleasurable, or by creating a new positive association with something that is a discipline that you've managed to kind of wiggle out of for the rest of your life, or the previous parts of your life. So this is the boundary experiment, and you're going to have fun with it. You're going to choose 3, and then you're going to report back to me. You can either share it in the Slack so that everyone else sees it as well. You can do a screenshot of your grid, or you can just share 1 or 2 of them. And we're going to hold each other accountable to this as well, because accountability is really important, and it's really difficult to just maintain our own internal compatibility without also entering in that voice of judgment or shame or avoidance or whatever your coping mechanism is, your negative coping mechanism. So this has proven some really incredible results. I will actually see if somebody will share their story tomorrow or share their story in class. And you are going to do this experiment for at least 30 days. And if at some point during that time you realize that you can alter one of the variables, and maybe it's like, oh, I love hiking so much, I want to do it 2 times a week, or I just want to be in nature and I think that gardening might be more my speed, like you can change it. But don't change it too frequently unless you're just kind of moving along the same line. So if you are limiting your social media and you realize, okay, I went from 3 hours to 1 hour, and now I actually want to go to 30 minutes. Wait a minute, 15 minutes. Actually, I'm going to delete the whole account. That's kind of moving along the same line, the same spectrum, and that's okay. But I just wouldn't keep you like, oh, I want to be outside, so I want to go hiking. No, I want to go gardening. No, actually, I want an indoor plant. Don't do that. Try to maintain your discipline around the experiment to see what the variables are and how they can impact your life in a positive way, so that you are creating the most positive environment, the most likely to be able to grow into this next version of you, and to allow your seeds of your vision to really take root, to really be nourished in your soil, and to grow for yourself and for the generations to come. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and that you can bring curiosity and gentleness into this experiment, and that you are going to see results that have a wonderful impact in your life. Have a fabulous day.